Hi everyone, thanks for tuning in to the Radults podcast, the podcast that highlights the stories of people who said fuck that to the idea that growing up means giving up on your dreams, and instead turn those dreams into their reality. Today's guest is Pat Shand, a writer who has penned multitudes of issues of Charmed, Grimm Fairy Tales, and Robin Hood, as well as his own creator-owned content, Destiny New York, Breathless, and Snap Flash Hustle. Pat has put his name to a handful of Marvel novels. It doesn't stop at writing though. Pat is a hip-hop connoisseur and could school anyone on that subject. Pat Shand is a Radult and is today's guest on the Radults podcast. Pat, for our listeners out there, who are you and what do you do?
Hey, I am Pat Shand. I am a comics writer, content creator, screenwriter. I produce stories.
I like that last one a lot, like just the way that you go, I produce stories. Because it kind of sounds like a little bit humble, like considering what you've worked on.
Oh, thank you. I mean, like, honestly, I'm probably not that humble, but but the truth is that I don't want to limit myself to what I'm already known for. You know, like I do primarily work in the comics industry, but I'm also a novelist. I'm doing prose. I'm moving into screenwriting. So I just want to put it out there in general, from my comics to my other fiction to my podcasts to my vlogs. I just make stories.
Yeah, and I mean, I guess that is a good segue into the next question, which is when you're writing, regardless of whatever form you're writing, where do you tend to draw your influences from?
It's hard to say, you know, because I feel that when I was a younger writer, I definitely wore my influences more on my sleeve. But now I try to write less from influence and more from questions that I'm asking myself, things that bother me. And I can, in each project, I can say, say, for example, in Prison Witch, of course, it takes influence from Orange is the New Black. It takes influence from the portrayal of witchcraft in The Craft and Buffy the Vampire Slayer, in Kiki's Delivery Service. You know, there are all these influences there, but also it's I can dissect that further by saying that my wife's interest in the occult is a big influence there, even though that isn't fictional, you know. So I can retroactively look at influences and pick it apart. But honestly, when I'm sitting down to write, I try to look more inward and ask myself important questions that I want to explore for a long period of time, rather than trying to say, this one is going to be this meets this. You know, I won't know that until the book is done.
Absolutely. And does that, I guess, if you've written from, let's say, from the inside, when you then go, this does meet this, are you upset that you can see similarities in other titles, or do you take it as a compliment that you've created something that is original and comes from yourself, but you see some sort of resemblance with another title or another film or something like that?
I mean, kind of neither. You know, I don't really have any opinion on that either way, because when I create that elevator pitch, I'm not finding a thread that is a direct copy of something. I'm more finding a way to easily summarize it, because the thing is, the most original story, you can say, it feels like this, it's like this, even if it's not quite. Like, we pitched Breathless, my series for Black Mask. We pitched it as Buffy meets Big Pharma. The truth is, stylistically, tone-wise, it's nothing like Buffy. That was just giving the readers something that they could understand enough to buy the first issue and hook them in, rather than something that was exactly true about the book. It was just true enough to make a marketing statement. Because the truth is, I can come up with that kind of, it's this meets this all day, but that's never a thing that I actively think of as a creator. That's more the marketing side of me that, because as a business person, you know, I need that marketing savvy so the creative business can exist. But definitely as a creator, it isn't a thing that I think about.
I'm curious, having heard you talk about how you're not deliberately incorporating your influences. We know that no artist is born fully formed. You're an ever-evolving being. I'm curious as to what your superhero origin story is. When did you realize you had this ability to write?
Oh, wow, yeah. I mean, I was very young, and I mean, I mentioned back then in the first question that, of course, I wore my influences more on my sleeve as a young writer. And I say that meaning very young. I was writing short Goosebumps stories on a typewriter, just these one-page stories when I was 7 years old. You know, I've always been writing. And I think that my journey matches so many journeys nowadays in that we start, and I didn't even call it that back then, but we start writing fan fiction. You know, my first fictional story was like Monster Blood 6. You know, I just imagined a distant future where R.L. Stine had tragically passed away, and I had, of course, the number one fan, inherited the right to continue Goosebumps, you know? And I would craft these one-page stories about his ideas. And then as a young teen, I was writing full novels that were thinly veiled Dragon Ball Z fanfic, sequels to the Harry Potter novels, and I would write entire books of that. And that's sort of where I found my voice as a writer, because when I was done with that, I started to have ideas for my own life. I would write, like, for example, when I was 16 or 17, I had a really good summer, and I wrote a book based on that summer. And of course, these books will never see the light of day because they aren't good yet. But I definitely had that arc where I started young and I started exploring writing through other people's ideas until I began to find interest in life.
It's interesting how you place it like that as well. Firstly, I do think that it should come out, just because I could make for a really interesting story. I'm definitely waiting for Monster Blood 6.
Oh boy!
As well. Once he started doing the various series that followed afterwards, it was never the same. So I guess you've touched on how you've got your own creative work started. You know, it started off, as you say, pretty much thinly veiled fanfic, and you've obviously grown since then. Yeah. Outside of your really cool creator-owned work, you've written for some pretty cool titles like Charmed and the various Marvel novels and Grimm Fairy Tales, just to name a few. What's the most important thing you have to remember when working in an already established universe?
You know, it's hard to say the most important thing. There are many different things that I've learned that I hold dear, and things that I have always thought true. You know, I remember when I was first coming up, the first creator that I ever met was Brian Wood, and I had just read his Supernatural comic. And when when I went up to him at a convention, I was excited to meet him, and I hadn't read his other work because I was just starting to read comics based on licensing properties, and I was on the floor of New York Comic Con, intent on finding my first gig as a writer. And I approached Brian K. Vaughan, excited to tell him that I enjoyed his Supernatural book, and I remember he said, "Oh, that was just work for hire," and that at the moment was disheartening, but I have my take on that, my opinion about that has arced over the years, where I still think that someone should never say that. Someone should be able to stand by their work for hire and should put a lot of their a lot into it as much as possible. At the same time, I now know that you can never, as a creator, even though you shouldn't say it to someone who's coming to you for a specific reason, the creator-owned work doesn't compare to the work for hire. Like the reason that I began to produce more creator-owned work as my main work, in contrast to when my primary work was done on freelance work, on IP that I didn't own, it doesn't compare. The work that I do now, the work that I own, that is dear to me. And while I am very fond of some of the freelance work that I've done, that I have come to understand is beyond being proud of. The core use of that is to pay bills and to make a life as a freelance writer. But so I understand how two things now. How it's dangerous to put too much of yourself into work for hire, because when you're done, you walk away and you don't own any of that. And then you're left with nothing that you do own if you put all of yourself into work for hire. So I understand more of where he was coming from now as an older creator, but I still maintain that I want to be able to sit down with someone who loved a piece of work for hire of mine that at the time I tried hard on, but didn't end up liking. And there are a few of those, but still respect that person and still come at it from a place where I'm grateful that I had that work, you know?
Absolutely.
Another space in which you do a lot of work is collaborations with other artists. I'm curious how important those collaborations are for you, and whose work should listeners be checking out?
Oh, wow. It's kind of hard to say because I've worked with, at this point in my career, probably hundreds of other artists and other writers. But right now, I'm finishing up my series, Snap Flash Hustle with Emily Pearson. She is on the rise. She's an incredible creator. She and Matthew Ehrman have a graphic novel series coming from Vault next year. Vault has this young adult imprint called Myriad, which is going to have their book Bonding. And I'm quite excited for that because Emily is an amazing artist. And I fully believe that, not even biased, because I have worked with artists who I think are incredible, but I've never said this before. I fully believe that Snap Flash Hustle, and specifically Emily Pearson, should win the Eisner this year. I don't think that anyone really compares to what she did as an interior artist on that book. And I'll say right now that my ongoing series, Destiny in New York, that book is dear to me. That's my main... As of now, it's where I put the most of myself. It's my annual series. I put out one big volume, about 200 pages per year. I mean it to be my magnum opus for this part of my career. And it's about a girl who had a prophecy made about her when she was young. She completes her destiny when she's 13, and now she's in her 30s trying to live a normal life. We had two different artists on the first two volumes just because as an indie publisher, artists will get bigger gigs and have to move on. But volumes 3 and 4 are being drawn by Eliza Romboli, who is just incredible. To me, she has totally reshaped the voice and the tone of Destiny New York. And I think that she has an amazing career ahead of her. I would also put her right up there with Emily as the best doing it right now.
Well, I'm interested to see if your thoughts happen at the Eisners. This year I get to go back, so I'll be able to check that out. I do believe that Emily is putting out some seriously good work. So I would be surprised if you're 100% correct with that.
If she doesn't even get a nomination, I might have to pull some Kanye type shit,
I'm definitely coming to the award ceremony now. I want to see that.
But to keep it 100% real, though, the Eisners, that's my favorite night of the year. I don't often feel like the comics industry is cohesive. I don't feel that it's that welcoming. And I feel that right now there's so much divisiveness, just not only in comics, but just in culture as a whole. I think that social media has kind of brought out the meanness in people. But the Eisners is the one night every year where I go there and I can feel the warmth in the room. I can feel the camaraderie. And even though it is an award show and the content itself should be the award, I don't know what it is about that night, but that night makes me feel like I'm part of this industry more than any other night in the year.
I'm looking forward to it. This will be I've done San Diego before, but this will be my first awards night that I'm going to go check out. So I'm definitely keen to see how that goes.
Nice.
So, I mean, you've been very giving with your time and advice with other creatives, including myself. What makes you do that when some see the industry as like a dog-eat-dog environment, pretty much like you just mentioned?
Yeah, it's how can I say this? It's a mix of things, right? It's, for me, my answer is both positive and negative. My answer is that, one, I feel that I can help people. I feel that I have a specifically when people ask about Kickstarter and creator-owned things and starting their career, I think that I have a take that's valuable. I think that what I say has value there. However, I think that in the past I have found it difficult to say no, and I found myself recently getting in these conversations where someone will ask me for advice and I'll give them the advice and then they'll argue why that I'm wrong, and that happens so frequently. People, I find there's this stubbornness that new creators have these days where they want to already be right. They want to just be told that they're already on the right track, and that is making me kind of want to be a bit more protective of my time, because the thing is, I have found more recently I'm being asked questions that I would never ask someone. I'm being asked not what is your advice on my idea that I'm doing here, on my ascent in the industry, and more, how do I do this? Tell me how to do this. And just from strangers. And that is, I feel, the wrong way to go about it. Like, for example, if you are interested in running a Kickstarter and you come to me asking things that you could learn from looking at even one campaign that was successful, that's going to make me want to help you a bit less because you didn't help yourself first. So my advice overall to anyone listening would be, before you reach out to anyone, help yourself first. You can, the internet it's a wealth of knowledge. Everything that I learned, I've never asked anyone the questions that I'm being asked these days. Never. I have reached out to ask friends for advice after building a relationship, but there is so much out there that I feel that people should soak in themselves and sort of make themselves an expert before talking to anyone else. And then when you talk to someone, their advice is going to be so much more valuable to you because you have a base of knowledge to build on. If you have no foundation of knowledge, everything that you build is going to just wobble and fall,
I think you're right with that. I think that, it's like that thing that you've got, like how teachers say, have you tried to do this yourself first before you've asked for help? Right. I think that's 100% it. I think it shows at least some sort of level of either ignorance or laziness or even both. But I think you're on the ball with that.
Yeah, I think it's laziness and it's fear. I think that people are scared to compare themselves and scared to not succeed, because putting yourself out there, especially running a Kickstarter, that's like putting your heart and soul on the line and saying, am I good enough? And then finding out not yet is a pretty hard thing to face. So I always say arm yourself with the most amount of information that you can. But the truth is, and I honestly believe this, I have no competition. We creators are not in competition. You are building your own audience. There's all this cutthroat behavior, but I don't feel in competition with anyone who is working on any title, who is going for any gig. I feel that my only competition is my last work. I want to always be improving, but comparing yourself to other creators, I think, is sort of chasing the wrong goal,
Absolutely. All right, so this is generally where we have a little bit of fun, break it up, because obviously some conversations can get a little bit serious. So we have a segment on this show, which are rad breaks, so like an ad break, but rad. So we ask you questions, they vary in topic, and then you just give us the answers, generally with no explanation needed, but obviously feel free to dive in with this as well.
Hit me.
All right, so the first rad break we're going to play with you today, Pat, is give us 5-word sentences. And in this instance, it's give us 5-word sentences that describe each of the following titles.
Okay.
The first title is Little Girl.
Haunting from the ghost's POV.
I like it.
The second one is Clonsters.
Amazing kids book created wife.
I'm really curious about this one. Prison Witch.
Magic that happens behind bars. Boom!
Oh! Put it on the sticker. I'm in. My other half actually runs a bespoke witchcraft paraphernalia company, so this was right down my alley.
Hey, that's awesome.
Now, Destiny, New York.
The best comic out now.
Prince of Modesty, Pat Shan. And Afterglow.
Apocalypse like you've never seen. There we go.
Ding, ding, ding. We have a winner.
Yeah, so now I'm going to have a little bit of fun with you because I think you're going to enjoy this one.
Let's go.
So the rad break I'm bringing to you is rap beef battles. Who would win?
Oh boy. Okay. Yeah. Let's do this.
Yeah, you're ready. I know. So
I'm so ready for it.
Kendrick Lamar versus Chance the Rapper.
Oh, that's no contest. I love Chance, but Kendrick would wash Chance. Kendrick is amazing, and well, all right. Chance is amazing too, but Chance is when he gets in his pocket, Chance's best songs have a very positive vibe, while Kendrick's best songs have any sort of vibe that he can pull off. I think that Chance's I don't want to say he's more limited because he's not, but Kendrick has already shown, I think, a more well-rounded career that includes aggression, whereas I haven't really heard aggression from Chance, and I think that Kendrick is not much, but is a little more clever lyrically, so I do think that Kendrick would come out the victor, even if it isn't by a huge margin.
You know what? I think you're correct with that anyway. I think that anyone would agree with that. Not to, shit on...
Yeah, Chance is... what I love about him is the way he finds different pockets in the beat and plays with where the rhyme falls. But in a rap beat, what's that going to do, you know?
Exactly. All right, so the next one, A$AP Rocky versus A$AP Ferg.
I'd say Rocky has it. Just because, I mean, honestly, I know more Rocky songs. You know, I know that Ferg had a pretty good record recently, but I listened to it once. You know, I would just say based on who I know, I would say Rocky just because I find him a bit more listenable, and I think that now diss tracks are a lot more, in my opinion, about who can make the better song as a whole. Because now, when I look back at Takeover and Ether, in the era where that happened, Ether was hands down the winner. However, as those records have aged, Jay-Z and Takeover are coming out way more on top because people still vibe with Takeover, where no one really puts on Ether to have fun, you know? And I think that when you could elicit more emotions from a diss track and have people bump your song that's insulting over and over and over again, like Back to Back from Drake was an incredible record itself. So I think that diss tracks can function on multiple levels. So A$AP, I think, is a bit better of a songwriter. Well, they're both A$AP. Rocky is a bit better of a songwriter, so I think that he would take it.
Yeah, I think you could be onto that as well. So the next one is Cardi B versus Bad Baby.
Oh, you know what? All right, I'm going to say this. I love Cardi. Her record last year was incredible, and I think that people will always people will always look down on Bad Baby because of where she came from. But I'll say this: her music is better vibe music than it has any right to be. But for sure, Cardi would wash her with no problem. Cardi, I think, is an incredible artist, whereas Bad Baby is just someone who's like, wow, that record isn't bad, even though I thought it was going to be for sure. So Cardi for sure.
21 Savage versus Denzel Curry.
I actually don't know Denzel Curry's music, and I love 21 Savage, so I'm going to say 21 for sure.
And I'm going to tell you right now, go listen to Taboo, the album from Denzel. Amazing.
Okay. Because I actually was just on my errands today. I was listening to 21 Savage, his album, I Am, I Was. And man, it's a good record, man. But I'll definitely check out your recommendation there.
Childish Gambino versus Post Malone.
Oh, Post Malone is trash. It's absolute trash. Post Malone is not hip hop. He does not get a pass from me. He's unlistenable. For sure, Gambino. For sure.
Joey Badass versus Ty Dolla $ign.
Yeah, they're the same exact level for me, man. They neither of them do much for me, even though I don't dislike them. So I'm gonna put them at the exact same level. It's gonna be a draw.
They both just KO each other.
Both KO each other, or they just keep throwing bars until people just leave, dude. You know, because I mean,
the underground car park is empty right now.
Exactly.
And the very last one that we have for you, Kanye West versus Drake.
Oh, Drake. Drake is the best lyricist right now. Drake, there's no one who is on Drake's level. And I mean, we saw this battle last year. Drake roasted Kanye over and over again. Though Kanye's response was such a Kanye response where it was a non-response. All he did was call him light skin. It was a hilarious response. But for sure, Drake would wash anybody.
What's your take on Kanye saying that Drake has a ghostwriter?
Well, Kanye isn't saying that. That was Meek Mill who said that. Drake ghostwrites for Kanye. The situation with Drake and the ghostwriter who was Quentin Miller was that Drake brought him in to write together on a couple of songs on his If You're Reading This, It's Too Late album. But Drake, the reason that I don't respect the Drake has a ghostwriter argument is that Drake has been known in the industry, both as far as insiders and just the general public, as a writer for his whole career. When he was first found by Wayne, he was writing on multiple different artists' projects. He wrote for Dre on Detox. He's ghostwritten for some people's favorite rappers. He wrote for Kanye himself on his latest album and his previous album, Pablo. And my thing is that if Drake needs a ghostwriter, why would he be ghostwriting other people's stuff? You know, Drake has collaborated with writers in the past, but that's just the new state of the industry. People do collaborate. And if you see the liner notes on old albums too, it's quite rare to see just one name.
Definitely.
All right, so that brings the Rad Break to an end. That was one of my favorite ones ever. The level of depth and thought that went into those rap battles has made me primed to bring back Celebrity Deathmatch and just call it Celebrity Rap Match.
They should do that. They should do that for sure, yeah.
2019's most extreme survival of the rapper.
Oof.
I got a feeling Drake's gonna lose.
I mean, versus Kanye, I don't know. Drake has fucking biceps. I mean, can I curse on this thing?
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah. No, Drake. He has some biceps. Kanye West is a Kardashian, man. And here's the thing. I love Kanye West. I mean, if you put Drake up against the Game, physically the Game would destroy Drake. The Game has these python arms, you know, but I think that people see Drake as pretty soft, but that is not the case.
And I suppose he's got access to all those NBA gyms, right? Like he's got
It's true.
He's got the ability to improve those his skills.
Indeed.
Now, before we get back into the serious business of the comics, you listen to a lot of hip-hop, and we definitely just learned that. Almost to the point that Mike is pretty much waiting for you to drop your own mixtape.
I am.
So what got you into hip-hop and rap, and who are you currently listening to?
Oh, wow. You know, I mean, I tried to have my... I try to listen broadly. You know, I listen to popular rappers. I listen to underground. I even listen to YouTube rappers. I mean, recently I've been on my channel with my wife. We react to hip hop, and we've been really messing with Quadeca and Screwface Jean, two rappers who people would consider YouTube rappers who are incredible. I mean, last year some of the best albums came from Drake, Eminem, 21 Savage, who is so underrated even though he's a legend. I don't know why people aren't talking about Method Man had an incredible album last year. So yeah, those are the albums that I'm listening to right now. And Tokens Between Somewhere, incredible record. And how I started listening to rap, man, I still remember the first hip hop song I ever heard was All About the Benjamins. It was playing on MTV, and I remember as a kid I heard it, and it was a live performance, and they were bleeping out the curses, and I thought for sure that the audio was messed up because every few seconds it would just cut out, and I was like, oh, I wish I could hear the whole song, you know, because it intrigued me. And then soon after that, I heard Eminem's first album, the Slim Shady LP, and I borrowed it from my friend and copied it onto cassette. And from there, I went back and bought Snoop Dogg's discography, Dr. Dre's, Tupac's, started on the West Coast, and then I expanded from there. And I've always listened to rap. And in fact, you're waiting on the mixtape, but in the past, as a kid, I grew up rapping for sure. I probably recorded about 300 songs from age like 10 to maybe 18, just with friends, you know. I definitely don't do it anymore. It fell by the wayside, but I did grow up just as a big fan of hip hop.
I can definitely tell. I can definitely tell that. So, what I want to know: are you willing to drop a few bars from the top of your dome now, or should we move on to the next question?
Yeah, no, I'll spit some bars. Give me a topic.
Let's go comics.
Okay, comics. All right. Went to the shop. I'm stacking up. Man, yeah, I mean, it's hard on the spot to talk about comics, but all right. So, all right. I went to the fourth world. I got my pull list. I'm gonna probably not read this shit for a whole month, bitch. All them old singles just stacking high.
I love it. That's
all I got, man. That's all I got, man. Maybe I'll spit some bars later on. If you ask me a question and I think of a rhyme, I'll come through with it then.
Good. I'm looking forward to that now.
Thanks.
I don't know why, but every time someone starts freestyling, I just get that scene from 8 Mile stuck in my head where he just completely flames out. And that might be one of the first times I've actually experienced that happening in real life. So cheers.
Yeah, man. No, it's hard to do, you know. But what I am looking at from my point of view in my couch, I just went on eBay and ordered some new kicks. That's what I do, bitch.
I think the emphasis on the bitch there really brings it home. I think you've mastered the art.
I keep spending paper. I'm ruthless. You see?
Okay, it's much better than that the Sway video where Kanye just sits there with an awkward smile on his face. So
oh, for sure. Yeah, because here's the thing. Like, I'm a comics writer. Kanye is a rapper, dude. He should be rapping.
Yeah. that video was painful to see.
Okay, well, before we get stuck talking about hip hop for the rest of the episode, where do you think most creators get stuck when putting together their comics?
I would say that it's when they can't even start. You know, people just have a basic idea and they don't know what to do with it. They just keep having this idea in their head and they don't do shit. And there's another bar for you. I snuck it in there. No, but that's true though. That people always think that they have this amazing and incredible idea, and it just sits there as an idea, and they consider themselves a writer because people have sort of bastardized what writer means. I remember a few years ago, Brian Bendis made this post like, if you have ideas and you don't write, then you're not a writer. And for some reason, because now that was controversial, you know, but that's the truth. You know, if you, it's the same shit. Like if you tell me that you're a plumber and you don't plumb, you're not a plumber. You know, you just are someone who talks about fucking toilets. You know what I mean?
Oh, jeez, you got the burns going there. That one.
No, but yes, it's that's where it stalls out. It's the actual writing itself, and it sounds so silly that to say that a writer's main obstacle is writing, but that's true. People have, because there are different phases of writing, of course. You know, there is the idea, and that's step one. But step two is actually moving your fingers across the keyboard, or if you still do this for some reason and you're so pretentious, but if you write on a physical piece of paper, that's still better than doing nothing. You know, people get caught at that first kernel of an idea and never move past it and still call themselves a writer. But guess what? Not.
We're getting some like hard truths here right now. This could be the realest episode ever.
Yeah, man. I mean, I bit my tongue for years because I would just go on podcasts or just go on social media and just answer questions like, blah, 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 and just like say it in the least aggressive way possible. But the truth is that that's not good advice. The good advice is from people like Bendis who go, hey, you have an idea, you don't write it, you're not a writer, you know?
Yeah, and I mean, if anything, like, I don't think that you've put anyone through the meat grinder with what you've said. You've just said the things that are true. And if people can't swallow that, it's probably about them.
Oh, yeah, no, that's for sure. I mean, I 100% agree. If you're offended by that and you think that, oh, I am a writer, even though I just have the idea, prove me wrong. Write something. And then you'll see what I did there. That'll be good advice then, because you'll have actually made a product, right?
That's it. And sometimes when you do something out of spite, it turns out pretty good.
It's true.
So I'm pretty damn certain that anyone would consider you successful with everything that you've accomplished this far in your career, and that your Kickstarter campaigns kill it. I want to touch on Kickstarter for a moment. What are some oversights that people have when running a Kickstarter campaign, and why do you think that is?
Oversights. I would say a big oversight is that people don't account for updates. I think that people that devalue updates in all phases of the campaign. You know, they're important during the campaign, and they're so important after the campaign. People, I see these campaigns running late, right? And I see these creators not communicating, and their pages essentially become a forum of pissed off people waiting for their book very loudly. However, every time that my books have run late, because here's the thing, it's not, Kickstarter is not diamond previews. It's, you're helping the book get made. It's still in the process of being made. Things can happen. artists can be late. A printer can say, "Oops, forgot to send this." Months later, a customs agent could go, "Hey, guess what? Not gonna put these books over for a month or so." There's very frequently nothing that the creator can do to ensure that the books will be on time, except putting a date so far out there and aim to beat that. So what I've seen creators do is that when they get behind, instead of updating their audience the whole time saying, "Oh, this is happening, we've done this, but this has set us back, we're doing this," instead of that, they'll go silent. And then, like I said, their campaign becomes just a collection of pissed off people, and that will always look bad, because then when they launch a second campaign, people look back to that first one and see this collection of anger, right? And that can be avoided by just updates, because I've had a few campaigns run a bit late, and because of my updates, I've had maybe one angry comment ever, and I've seen campaigns that have run 1 month late with no updates just get flamed. And that they have to own that because they didn't keep in touch with their backers. So their backers kind of feel like they've been left out to dry, when really all it takes is hey, this is what's going on. Here are a few shots of our progress, and that's it.
I think there has been, without naming names, there have been a couple of creators recently that have 100% been flamed just for that. And it's not even, like you said, it's a sounding board of these people that are leaving these comments, saying, "Oh, like, where's my stuff? Where's my stuff?" And it's over and over. And because there hasn't been those responses where he can assure them and be transparent in going, "Hey guys, like, this is what's happened," it just looks like an angry mob. And I mean, it does cut me a little bit sometimes, just personally, when I can see Kickstarter campaigns doing pretty damn good, and they're not fulfilled before they're doing another pretty damn good campaign either, and or multiple at the same time.
Well, all right, that I agree with half of that. I agree that someone shouldn't do multiple at the same time. I don't agree that you shouldn't do one before fulfilling the other. Because, for example, in my business, I aim to produce at least 5 books per year through this. So if I didn't do that, I'd be producing much less and giving much fewer people work. So just something to think about is this, that when a successful creator who always fulfills their campaigns starts a new one before fulfilling, I think that's a very different thing than someone who is leaving readers out to dry on one campaign doing another one. I think that it's an important distinction, because I see Kickstarter as a couple of things. It is a pre-order site, and it is very much also a means to directly involve fans and have them help you produce the book. But someone would never say, like, say, for example, Top Shelf, right? They produce graphic novels. Say they put out a solicit for one graphic novel in June and another one in July. People have to pre-order those both before the books ever come out. So people will pre-order the second one before the first one comes out and have no problem with that, because that's just how traditional publishing works. Kickstarter is the sweet spot between traditional publishing and a Patreon type service, where you are paying for a specific product, but since you're having a direct interaction with the creator, they expect a bit more of a tailored process. But I can't agree that you should fulfill one before fulfilling the other. I think it should be a case-by-case basis based on the creator's past.
Yeah, look, I think that's right. I mean, like, if you've shown, that you've got a reputation of being able to get these to the books in, I guess, what you'd consider a respectable time, and that you've kept them in the loop, I guess I can see where you're coming from in that. I think that if you show that transparency, that alone changes, I guess, my thoughts on running another one without fulfilling the first one, or like without completing the fulfillment yet.
Sorry for the dead space for a second there, guys. There's a cat who decided to crawl across my keyboard. So
on the podcast, we got some dead space. I'm just sitting here trying to get my head straight.
That's amazing. All right, so Vincent's out of the way now, so I can continue. When it comes to using Kickstarter to fund a project, why do you think that your campaigns specifically have been so successful?
I would say a couple of things. At first it was a big struggle. My first 2 campaigns were quite hard to fund, but it's been a bit easier after that, and they happen quicker after that. And I attribute that to 2 things. One, I think that I put out a good product. I think that people, when they receive Destiny New York or Cloisters, they would put that next to any book by a traditional publisher and say, this is as good, if not better, right? And I think so the quality, and I think the fact that I delivered at all. So many campaigns that I back end up being so late, not ever sending any updates, or flat out not delivering. I think that the Kickstarter community needs you to prove to them that you will deliver. And the fact that I delivered so many times has engendered trust between myself and my base of backers. And then also when people... when new backers will see my back catalog and go to my campaigns and see happy backers, they will feel more at ease and back my campaigns. But I know that a lot of writers would stop short of saying, "Oh, because I'm good at what I do." But the truth is that I am not with that bitch ass shit. I am not going to sit here and say and pretend that I don't take pride in my work. I think that the books that we do here, from the stuff that I've created to the ones that my wife has created, I think that we put out a great product, and that the reason that they fund so quickly and get so much support is primarily because of the quality of the writing, the idea, the way that we put it together, and for sure the artists that we pick. We have a very high standard for artists, fostered by our editor, Shannon Lee, and I think that is the primary reason.
I think that you're 100% correct in saying that. I think that for yourself, you have made a name for quality books. Obviously, the stuff that Space Between puts out some like killer books that, like you said, you've fostered some great artists that have put in this, and the books that come out have been amazing as well. With that being said, when it comes to setting bars for your projects, do you deliberately go higher on the next project, like with just standard, with price, with cost, with everything, just because you feel like you can hit that? Or is it a case-by-case thing that if you have, let's say, a 20-page book as opposed to an 80-page book, will you bring that margin down?
Oh yeah, for sure. It's the goal is always based on how much it costs us, and honestly, every time it costs me more to produce the book than it does that I ask for. I always end up putting some of my own into it because I care a great deal about 2 things. One, the quality of the book itself. I always make sure that the book is heavy. The paper has a weight to it. The covers don't like curl up. They have a weight to them. That's important to me to create a beautiful, hardy, physical product. And second, I'm going to be 100% honest. I forgot what the fuck I was talking about, dude. Okay, so good physical product, and second, I also want to develop a backstock. I'll use the Kickstarter funds that people would see as extra to, instead of having, say if I get 400 orders, if I order 500 books, that's a waste of money because one, the price per book is so much higher for me. So I'll instead go and buy 2,000 copies, and I'll then have stock to sell for hopefully years to come.
It's a good way to look at it. And I think with you creating the books that you do and the fact that when you release volumes, and I say volumes of Destiny New York physically, and you've done the single issues digitally, I think that means that your stock, like you've said, the backlog of stock means that it stays relevant for those years to come while you sell it, as opposed to going, oh, well, I can just go buy the trade. It's like, well, this kind of is the trade. This is how you get it, unless you want the single issues where you go digitally.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, that's one thing I for sure see as part of my business is focusing on a longer read and focusing on the trade, because the truth is, I find that people generally, when I was doing that first failed verse, my point that I was going to build toward in my bars was that when people buy single issues, they let it stack up, right? Those stacks teeter high. No one really reads single issues that much anymore. People in the 2019 binge culture want a longer story. People want trades, or people want to let the single issues build for a few months and then dive in. It's very foreign to a modern audience, the idea of reading a book for 15 minutes and then revisiting it a month later. That is not a common idea to the modern day reader. So I like to give a rewarding read where you will spend hours with the characters for that setting, and then by the time volume 2 comes out, it's been about a year since you read them. You'll reread volume 1 and then go right into volume 2. Whereas, I mean, I'm not going to reread an issue 1 a month later to read an issue 2, but I will reread a volume 1 a year later to catch up to volume 2 for sure. The length of the story and having a reader spend a longer time with our characters in our world is a main part of our business.
Absolutely, and it makes sense as well. I mean, like what people do with Game of Thrones and other shows, you know, a lot of, I don't know about over in America, but cable services and streaming services here advertising Game of Thrones, going, catch up. You've got this much time to watch seasons 1 through 7. Do it. And people obviously do it because it's been, 2 years or whatever since the show's been out.
Yeah, for sure.
So, moving this along, we're getting towards the end of this. What I would like to know, and feel free to spit bars for this, what are your tips for being a radult?
I would say that there is something so potent that comics creators explore about teenage rage, but there is a certain dignity to acting your fucking age. How about that, man?
I like that. That's probably one of my favorite tips we've ever had.
Yeah, because here's the thing. I love stories about young adult characters, but now that I am in my 30s, I wish that there were more stories about 30-year-old adult characters. Not so frequent in the indie comics industry, you know. So I want to hear more people exploring things that we go through, you know, and just sort of delving into what it means to be an adult, or as you say, a radult.
I like it.
I like it, and I can see potential for those stories to go in very interesting ways too. So many things that happen to you as you get into your 30s and beyond are actually quite good fodder for comic books. I mean, one, you're a decaying piece of flesh. That's got to appeal to a certain sort of horror comic.
Oh, I mean, for sure. I was just going to say that I could pitch my new series, Woke Up Limping, to someone, you know?
Before it's Where's My Car Keys?
There we go. Absolutely. How about turn to scratch my back in the shower and couldn't move, number 1, you know?
There's so many.
Definitely.
You know, and then you've got that upcoming horror one, No Universal Healthcare.
Oh, boy. Yeah, there we go. I mean, that actually, I wrote Breathless number 1 for Black Mask, and that pretty much is that comic.
That's it. It's so good. And as an asthmatic, I can, definitely attest to that.
Oh, yeah, thank you, man. I empathize with you.
Well, there'd be no point for you being here from your perspective outside of just being a nice guy if we didn't give you a chance to tell us what work you have coming up. So if you know, what does the second half of 2019 look like for you?
All right. Well, in stores now at the time of this podcast releasing is Spider-Man Spideyography. That is a book from Insight Editions. It is Peter Parker's journal, and it is done as this beautiful hardcover pop-up book with inserts and pullouts, all that fun stuff. That is out now at all bookstores. For those looking for space between, Destiny New York, Clonsters, Afterglow, Prison Witch, Gangster S Barista, and Spooky Girls should all be available on Amazon to order right now. And if this is put out in the last week of May, right? May?
Yeah. It's looking like it.
I believe that Clonsters Clonsters Volume 2, Space Nuggets, will likely be on Kickstarter right now. So go and support myself and my beautiful wife, Amy, who is the creator of Clonsters.
Anything called Space Nuggets has my support.
Boom, there we go. Yeah, we in Volume 1 we introduced the Earth Nuggets and the Sea Nuggets, but if you look in the back of that volume, you'll see Amy included pictures of these little green creatures. So there will be Space Nuggets coming in Volume 2.
I'm going back to read it right now. So I guess we move on to the end, which is where people can find you. But for the very start of this, will you be at San Diego Comic-Con? And where can people find you there?
I can honestly say at this point, I don't know if I'll be there. But if I am there, you'll know by following me on social media. I'm Pat Chan pretty much everywhere, just my name. Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. Follow my company, Space Between Entertainment, on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube, where I post reaction videos, our podcast, and our vlog with myself and Amy.
And very last thing, before we say our goodbyes, will we ever see a Space Between crossover with any of your titles?
Crossover, it's hard to say because I am creating pretty unique worlds in each one. Like Prison Witch is a different world than Destiny New York is a different world from Afterglow, is a different world from Clonsters. But some potential there is for characters in Spooky Girls to return to their own titles and perhaps share a title. Or what I am doing is Gangster S Barista is a spin-off of Destiny New York. But that introduces certain characters who are in that world who will then appear later on in Destiny New York. So that could be a little bit of a crossover.
I like it. Well, thank you very much for joining us. Obviously, Brenson's loving the titles of your comics, so I'm sure he's going to go look them up.
I am loving it. Can you also, look, this is just off the top of my head. It has very little to do with the actual podcast itself. But I really want to hear you cut some bars on aggressive New York cyclists.
Okay, yeah, all right. So, how will we start? All right, so, you see a fucking cyclist and he's speeding down the street. There's no one fucking cornier than that guy, G. And that's all I got. It's like they come so aggressive, man. They scream at you. They'll out the way, and it's like, dude, you're wearing a fucking highlighter. What are you doing? And first of all, there's no one who cares less about their own life than a guy on a bike in New York City. Just zooming through the roads. You're about to become a stain on the ground, dude. What are you doing,
Absolutely. Look, we're in Melbourne, Australia, and so we have a very bustling city here as well, and cyclists are the bane of every driver, pedestrian, everything. Like, their existence, their bright spandex, like, they should be locked up.
Oh, no, they should. I mean, I'll say this. I have love in my heart for everyone who reads my books, even cyclists.
Whoa.
But I'll say this for sure, fuck cyclists, right? I mean, come on.
Well, there you have it. We've got hip hop from the comic shop from the Master Pat Shan that's always on top.
Hey, some bars there, man. Nice.
Yeah, that's getting cut. All right.
No, it's not.
Anyway, thank you very much for joining us. It's been awesome having you, and it was definitely a really fun podcast episode.
Oh, thanks. I had fun too.
Awesome. Catch you later.
Bye.
And that brings to an end another episode of the Radolts Podcast. We hope you've enjoyed your time with us today and that you've left the episode feeling even more inspired to turn your own creative dreams into reality. As always, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, follow, and share our content. And go out there and live life a little more Radolt. Have a rad day.